Hi, this is Brett. I thought I'd give a fun introduction to artificial intelligence AI for folks who may not be that aware. For a lot of people, this is a very scary topic, and let me give a little background about myself. I've been in the IT world for about 30 years. Try to stay very current on any new topics, and especially around technology and how it can impact the potential workforce. I more recently have specialized in supporting manufacturing, but also have a lot of experience in retail support, as well as professional consulting and other types of businesses. And with artificial intelligence, one of the most common things that people are using or talking about are just the basic AI models like ChatGTP or Copilot or any number of the natural language models. And these are things that allow a person to generally ask questions. A lot of people use them for pure fun, like, hey, make a cartoon character of something or what have you. But there's a lot of power there, and you know the concern there is that AI is someday going to take over our workforce. And while I do think that there are some potential applications where that might be the case, think of AI as a tool that is part of your tool set, that is similar to a smartphone, a computer. There's all sorts of innovations. A fax machine back in the day, pagers. There's all sorts of innovation over time that have been very disruptive to the workforce and how everybody does their business. And today is just commonplace. Think about a computer. That is something that people at the time thought this is going to take jobs. It's going to kind of destroy the workplace as we know it. And in some cases, that is true. But the big thing with any of these tools is it really allows a person or a company to be more efficient. And it's not about replacing people. It's about using people for things that they're best suited for. And in the case of AI, this is something that, from a very simple application, you're wanting to send an email to someone at work about a given topic, and you may draft something. You can copy and paste that into Copilot and say, is this a professional sounding email? And Copilot will help you rewrite it or maybe flag things that will, maybe could be misinterpreted or stand out as not consistent. A lot of times Microsoft Outlook actually has that built in, and you can actually turn it on to help you rewrite messages. Extremely helpful in the professional world, where if you're writing an email when you're upset, you may actually have a lot of negative connotation in your email that you don't realize, and it kind of helps you make sure that your email has the appropriate tone. The other aspect of things like AI is, again, helping you prepare presentations, analyze a lot of data. My own personal concern with artificial intelligence is more about the privacy. The data is everywhere, and data is actually, and I'm not a huge cryptocurrency person, but it's kind of the same idea. But data is kind of the currency of the future. It is the thing that allows companies to either succeed or fail. You can't operate by gut feel anymore. You need to have data to really support your assumptions and your hypotheses. And so, how do you make sure that as you are asking questions and looking at data, that data is protected? It's not going to be shared to other people. Your competitor can't say, hey, tell me what this other company is thinking about or what they're doing. And that is, unfortunately, a lot of that is out of the hands of a common user. Like, I have to trust that ChatGTP or Copilot or you name the model is protecting my data. But it is something that I recommend that people look at and understand for yourselves. It is awfully easy to just assume that people are going to do things. It just popped in my head. You think about the click-through agreements. So, for example, I've read stories. You have a Hulu subscription and you click through, and part of that subscription says You will not hold Hulu or their parent companies, responsible, blah, 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 blah. And then lo and behold, you go to Disney World, you have a terrible accident, and then Disney comes back and says, hey, you clicked on this agreement where you agreed not to sue us if anything happens. And, that case gets thrown out because that's considered a legal document where you gave up your rights. And we, as a population, don't even look at that. You just click on it and say, yeah, of course, I trust that the company is doing the right thing. And, most of the time they are, but a company is really, their really only interest is to protect themselves. And so, I encourage everybody, if you have a language model that you like, just do some research and say, how is my data protected? If I work for a company, we have Copilot is quote unquote the official tool of choice for our company, and I have to assume that the folks in security who are a lot smarter than I am in that area have done their research. They understand privacy concerns, and they have blessed that. For people who are going off and doing their own thing, it's a little bit of a different story. But I also really wanted to talk about, so that's one aspect, and I'm a firm believer that AI is going to enable us to change the way we think about work, and instead of helping us, instead of having to create everything from scratch, giving you the ability to jumpstart a creative thought process. It's in life, I feel like it's just important to be able to ask the good questions, even if you don't have the right answers. And I honestly think that's what separates a person into a good manager, a good supervisor, a good executive, is knowing what questions to ask, and to be able to chop through assumptions. And that is what the natural language model is all about. Is if you don't ask the right questions, you get garbage out. And so learning how to ask questions and how to interpret the data, the results, is absolutely an art, and it's something that people need to practice. You're not going to go into your favorite AI tool and ask a question and become this brilliant scholar overnight or in a minute. It's something it takes a long time to understand how to really fully utilize things. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And what I really wanted to talk about is more using AI for things. And I've seen people put out videos talking about Big Brother watching. And I honestly, it's not a concern I have. I figure that everything I do is tracked. I just give up. Everything I do is tracked. My search history is tracked. You can be talking at home about something silly, and then you go to Facebook, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, why am I getting ads for this thing that I just happened to have this conversation about? Because your phone's always listening, and that can really bother some people, and I get it. For me, it's just a fact of life now. Is everything you do, everything you say, everything that you watch on TV, that data is available someplace, and it's available to people. And so you kind of have a choice to say, I either accept that, or I don't accept that, which is your absolute right, which means you don't watch TV, you don't watch Hulu, you don't look at YouTube, you don't go to Facebook. And I have friends that stay offline, and part of that is the reason. And I can fully respect that. I personally just feel like there's nothing I necessarily do that I would really be embarrassed if someone came out and said, hey, you went to this place. So the idea of having GPS in your car, or for example, my car insurance, they have a tracker that if you install it in your car, it monitors your driving habits and whatever. Hey, if it saves me money, I'm going to go for it. I'm not worried about that they're going to use that to find out that I shop at Fairway instead of Hy-Vee, or it's just that information is very useful to Fairway and Hy-Vee as advertising dollars, because they know my habits. And that's where targeted advertising comes into play. But what I really wanted to talk about today is thinking about artificial intelligence and helping the workplace, and not only from a business perspective, but I just want to give a few scenarios. Again, I've seen some online videos where people are dismissing this as, Big Brother's watching and people are going to get fired because they're finding out people aren't as productive as others, and that may happen. But I just want to give some scenarios and think about these things. And the challenge here, and this is something I worked at a company called Wolfram Research. So they make a product called Mathematica. And I started working there in 1996. And one of the jobs I've always really loved is I was in charge of business development. So I was working with third-party developers who were building applications on top of Mathematica. And at that time, which is very basic today, but at that time they were doing extremely exciting things. And one of the ideas is using global optimization to really optimize things like how many checkouts do you need in a store given this number of people. And it was so hard. You almost had to have a PhD to even know how to put the data in, to interpret to get results, to interpret it. It was not something that an average person could do. It was well beyond normal capabilities. So you had companies that specialized, and they'd come in, and for $1 million or whatever, they would analyze a store's traffic patterns, and you'd have to have people sitting there watching and keeping track of where you go. I mean, this was back before you had GPS or anything. And this is where I get excited about AI, is think about the idea, and this is absolutely possible. And I'm sure it's happening today, where a store is watching shoppers' behavior and able to see where shoppers are going, and trying to optimize their paths in the store. And maybe to the detriment of the shopper, maybe they really want shoppers to go by this high profit area or some area where marketers are paying extra money. But it really allows the store to optimize for whatever they want, the shopping patterns. And then even thinking about, you think about times you go to the grocery store, and it's a really interesting mathematical problem where just adding one additional checkout person at times with a certain amount of volume can dramatically decrease the wait times in your line. So if you want to say, one of the things that's very frustrating to shoppers is you go shopping and then you're in line and you're waiting 10 minutes to check out or whatever. And so those are things that now, stores actually have over time spent a lot of money trying to figure that out. And now with AI, you can absolutely real time analyze what's happening, analyze how shoppers are behaving, how many people are going to be coming to the checkout, and potentially real time pull in additional staff to help run the checkouts, and to be able to optimize the shopper's experience. And you can take that to anything. So think about in a manufacturing world. And not shoppers, but imagine that you're someone who's assembling a widget, whatever it is, and you're trying to figure out how much time is spent by a person walking around to collect parts, and you want to really optimize that experience. So one, from an ergonomic perspective, you don't want people to have to take a lot of additional steps throughout the day. You don't want them to have to bend over or you want the most accessible things, or the most commonly accessible things, to be right, easy reach, for lots and lots of reasons. Traditionally, you would have some sort of Kaizen event or something where you would have people walk through what they do, and everybody would watch and keep track of that. And at the end of the day, go, wow, if we moved a part from here to here, that will save 4 steps, and they don't have to. The associate doesn't have to bend over as much to pick up that part on the bottom, which is used all the time. Those are things that over time people have manually thought about. With AI, it can analyze everything that people are doing in that warehouse facility and truly optimize things for worker efficiency, for how do we assemble this as quickly as possible. You think about from a distribution standpoint, how do you make sure that things that are very, very popular are easiest to get to compared to things that maybe aren't, and have adaptive put away rules. Think about it, a Starbucks or something else. How do you, a barista is making things. How do you make it sure that the most common things that they're dealing with are right there at the counter? And for sure, there is the possibility that AI will say, well, wait, why is this one worker operating the machinery X% faster than another worker? And maybe that means that person is not working as hard, or there's something else going on. But it also gives you the information to be able to mimic the workers who are high performers, and figure out what they are doing differently than maybe a low performer employee, and fix those. So I just, from a workplace perspective, the possibilities of AI for retail, for manufacturing, you pick the topic, banking, everything. There's a huge amount of things, because AI allows you to analyze a huge amount of data, look for disparities, and be able to call out those disparities in essentially real time. Something that would never be possible before. I'm a horse person, and I often think about how do you protect your horses. Imagine you have a horse barn, and you have cameras up everywhere, which is great, so you can keep an eye on what's going on. But do you have someone sitting there watching the cameras around the clock to see, hey, this horse is in trouble, or is having some sort of health crisis? Or and you can think about this with hospitals as well. I'm thinking about horses. Or do you have something that's an AI watching and go and realize that the horse is having unusual behavior, and is able to potentially flag that and alert someone that says, hey, there's something going on with this patient, this horse, this animal, that is unusual compared to its normal behavior, and potentially bring attention to that to someone. Send them a text message or whatever. Go check on my horse's Poppy. Go check on Poppy. She's not looking right. And it may be a false alarm, but imagine the peace of mind to realize that something is kind of always watching to look for those things. And so I want to encourage people, you should absolutely be cautious. But AI is a path of the future. And so just like smartphones, just like computers, just like any other technology, or the wheel, anything, you can look back and say, hey, the invention of cars totally revolutionized, and trucks totally revolutionized our transportation system. And yes, it put a ton of people who used to care for horses out of work, because horses weren't needed to pull wagons anymore across the country or in the cities. But those people now became truck drivers. I mean, it's just a natural evolution of how our society evolves. And so I want to encourage everybody to think about, how do you really think about this will separate you from everybody else. If in your environment, whether it's work, social, whatever it is, how do you incorporate artificial intelligence into what you do every day? And look for things where using AI can revolutionize how you think, what you spend your time on. I am not an artist. In fact, I'm horrible at it, and I'm blessed that my family is actually extremely artistic, and this drives them nuts. But I can use ChatGPT, because I can think about, here's a drawing or a piece of art or whatever that I like, and I can talk through, hey, I want to change this. I don't like the way that ear looks. I make the sunset look more vibrant. I have zero capability of doing that myself, but I can, through that kind of tool, create things that I'm very proud of, and I like looking at, and it drives my family nuts, because they are artists, and they feel like it kind of there's no soul in that. But I look at it as, I am able to create something that without this, I would have no chance. So again, just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. If you have any questions, throw it in the comments. I'd be happy. I want to start doing these kind of topics more often. And of course, like and subscribe. That's what everybody always says. But I need to get some fun little graphics to put on the screen. But if you like hearing me talk about these things, I'm happy to talk about anything. I've done a lot of presentations and company meetings and conferences, and honestly, I can talk for an hour about any topic that you give me. And it's something I absolutely enjoy doing. So if there's something that you'd like to hear more about, put a note in the comments and I'll make a video for it. All right, thanks. That's about it.